Good morning, everybody. Happy Sunday. It's such a beautiful day. My name is LB, and and any pronouns work for me. And welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Society of Schenectady on this 16th day of June, aka Father's Day. And I would be a disservice to all my fellow dads out there if I didn't start today's service with a dad joke. So permit me the cheesiness from the jump, okay? A kid asks, "Dad, why are you standing outside?" And the dad says, "So if anyone asks, I'm outstanding." It's a good one. Thank you, Nathan. Thank you. I didn't make it up. I read it. Uh, so this morning, we're so grateful to the volunteers and staff that make it possible for us to gather on Zoom and in person. If you're visiting us for the first time in either Zoom or in person, we offer you an especially warm welcome. We know it isn't easy to come to a new place, and we hope you find today's message meaningful and that people here are friendly and approachable. I grew up not too far from here in Johnstown with two hardworking parents in a working class community. It was normal for us to spend several nights and sometimes days of the week at the homes of not only our grandparents, but aunts and uncles and family friends. We often saw these other adults more than our parents. Knowing now, what I didn't know then was that community was survival for my parents. It was a necessary part in my parents' parental journey, of their journey of being parents, of raising their kids because they had to work so much. I'm fortunate to have a different relationship with work and money and time, and I get more time with my kids than my parents did with us. But I still know in a different way that community is survival for us, even if ours is manifested in a little bit of a different way. Our parenting lifestyle and our lifestyle at home is a bit unique. Some of y'all know what my family life is like. It is a bit queer, if you will, in the way that queerness disrupts the status quo, because me and my co-parents have made the conscious choice to live and raise all of our kids under one roof. Much to the surprise and confusion of many. What that looks like for us is that I actively choose to live with my ex-wife and her now husband and his mom in one big single family house with all four of our kids and two dogs and a fish and a cat and sometimes some other dogs and some other people that come over. I make that choice despite what society says about how exes are supposed to feel about each other or have chosen to uncouple. We all made this choice because it was right for us and our family and our kids in this chapter of our parenting journey. It's not always easy, but no co-parenting scenario is. Our queerness and understanding of how we integrate queerness into family is not merely an identity, but a verb, a framework for our understanding and knowing the expectations and constraints the world wants to put on us, and then pushing back and finding alternatives that work for us. And this version of parenting does work for us. Even on the hardest days, I still would actively choose it because our community is built in a way. And then anybody else that comes into our life is additive when we think of the family, both blood and chosen, that extend outside of our home. This community that we've built is survival for us, a foundation of support for not only the kids, but the adults, because sometimes the adults need the other co-parents more than the kids do, just to stay sane on an extra hard day. The kids and the adults know that there are four people in their home looking out for them. The kids know that there are four adults there to support them and at times monitor them. They really cannot get away with a single thing. There's nothing that gets past four adults. There were many times growing up, especially as I got older, that I came home to an empty house because my parents were working. I still to this day have a visceral experience of the longing I felt as a kid, wanting to be met by a parent when I got home from school or marching band practice. The empty space of the house took on its own persona. Now, there are many cycles that I've tried to break as a parent, and the experience of coming home to an empty house is one of them. Now, it's very likely that my kids, at least one of them, will grow up longing for more alone time, quiet time, and probably choose to live on their own and to not replicate the beautiful, chaotic environment that they grew up in. Regardless of what they choose for the lifestyle that they have, my hope is that even in that quieter lifestyle, they'll know how to find their community and build it for themselves because we've modeled for them how to coexist and love people across change, across changing of relationships, changing of homes, changing of names and pronouns, the changing that comes from growing up and growing older, changing from life into death as pets and grandparents pass on. Parenting to me, whatever it looks like, is just that, loving and guiding young people through life. And through that experience, being that guide, we might just end up learning how to love and guide ourselves through it as well. Thank you.
When I was a child, I caught a fleeting glimpse out of the corner of my eye. I turned to look, but it was gone. I cannot put my finger on it now. The child is grown. The dream is gone. Those are lyrics from Pink Floyd's song Comfortably Numb. When I hear those lyrics, it brings me back to my childhood. I feel there are so many times when I thought I saw what joy or grace was, and it was just within my reach, and then it was gone. Being a human is hard. Raising another human is hard work. And being raised by a human is hard. There are no instruction manuals for any of these jobs. We only have what we're taught and what we're born with to guide our kids and ourselves. I am the father of 3 amazing humans. Gabriel, our oldest, Aiden, our amazing middle child, shout out to all the middle children, and Finn, our youngest. Each of them require different things from my partner, Abby, and I. I grew up in a home where my mother was not capable of love and a father who loved unconditionally. He loved me so much. Though all his love could make up for what it did not receive from my mother, this situation led to a confusing environment to grow up in, and I observed very chaotic, inconsistent, and unpredictable parenting methods. When Abby and I found out we were going to be parents, I was excited, but I was also so scared. Given my upbringing, I didn't want my children to suffer the ways that I did. When Gabriel was born, I knew enough not to make me the main character of his story. That was actually pretty easy for me since I still struggle with being the protagonist in my own story. I like being a supporting character. It's very comforting because that's what I was taught as a child. Growing up, I learned that my mother was the main character of my story, and that the outside world was a scary place where everyone was out to get you. That choice that I made alone wasn't enough to change. It wasn't enough of a change to help me with my kids' stories. Trying to be better is always a goal. But when you set the bar so low, like mine was, the better I was trying to be was not much better than where I had started out. My mental state wasn't good when we had 3 children, all under the age of 5. It wasn't horrible, but it wasn't good. Abby, my partner, then did something very brave and very loving. She told me I needed help. Now it was my turn to do something very brave. I listened to what she had to say instead of reacting. It was a turning point for me. I began to work on myself. I began therapy, which I am still in. I began to heal, which led me to realize that none of us has all the answers. I've become a better human and in turn a better parent. Before all the work that I did, I was scared to let my children out into the world where I wouldn't be in charge of them or their environments. As I said before, I didn't want them to suffer the same way I did as a child. I didn't want them to experience the world uh, in the same way I did. I tried to protect them. I tried to protect them the way my mother tried to protect me. I was discouraged through a variety of ways to want to experience the world. I was discouraged to go to friends' houses or leave my house at all. My brother once had a sleepover with friends, and my parents didn't like the fact that he was 7 or 8 at that point, that 7 and 8-year-olds acted like 7 and 8-year-olds. And so from that point forward, Sleepovers were banned, not only at our house, but we couldn't go to anyone else's either. Odd. But I thought all this was normal. Growing up, I was never encouraged to participate in things, anything really. I was actually discouraged because it interfered with my mother's time. I remember all the complaining my mother did, and every time my older brother would join a club or sport or want to do anything, both they were happier when he wound up quitting or not doing anything at all. Both my parents. So when Gabe and Aiden were in elementary school, I decided I would stop trying to run their lives and let them decide what their story or path would look like. They wound up choosing to participate in things I would never have suggested or thought of. They wanted to be involved in scouting. They wanted to play sports that I knew nothing about, like soccer and lacrosse and cross country and track. Abby suggested we join this congregation. Again, I wouldn't have done that. Finn is graduating high school at the end of this month. When I take the time to look back at not only my journey, but the part of my kids' journeys that I have been fortunate enough to be a part of, I see how far we've come. We met some great people along the way, like the father who took time to sit with Gabriel and his friend on their first overnight camping trip as Boy Scouts to calm them down in the middle of a severe thunderstorm. Back at that time, Gabe was extremely afraid of thunderstorms. He was brave that night. He learned how to be courageous. Or another parent who helped us process the grief of the passing of one of my son's classmates. We experience grief in all sorts of ways and in all directions. I am confident that if that parent wasn't involved in my son's life or mine, that process would have been a lot harder for him and for us. Or their cross-country coach, who taught them it's not about if you win or lose, but if you've improved and if you did the best that you could. Taught them how to deal with struggling and to celebrate your successes. How to set an example and not be the example. How to work hard for what you want. My kids and I are so much better people now that we've learned that from these people. Like I said before, I didn't have all the answers, but I'm confident as a community we are capable of finding the answers to the questions we need answers for. We also met some people along the way who showed us what not to do. Like the parent who put so much pressure on their child to be the best, to always win, to do things the way they wanted them done. My kids saw what that did to their friends and how they suffered. We learned that progress was the goal, not perfection. The other piece to this is by willing to be a passenger on my kids' adventures, I was able to help others too. I became involved in scouting. I would help other scouts along their journey to Eagle, help them with their merit badges, get to know them, share my knowledge with them. I feel I had a positive influence on all sorts of individuals and parents becoming who they were going to be along their path. My kids are mentally much healthier than I was. I didn't do this by myself. I had lots of help. Abby in particular, she makes me want to be a better human. My father, he was the first person to love me unconditionally. I feel without him or Abby, I wouldn't have been able to have started the self-care that I needed. The people I mentioned earlier, the fathers, the parents, even the teachers and counselors and RE teachers and OWL teachers and all the people who have touched my family's lives, all of them helped me, helped us. One of the things I'm most proud of as a parent is not having burdened my children with the weight of my past mistakes and continuing the cycle that was perpetrated onto me. I feel I stopped the wheel from turning and have given them a better foundation to write a happy ending to their story. I lost my father last year, as some of you know, and I was lucky enough to visit with him and my son Aiden last winter, a few months before he passed. I want to share my favorite memory of him because it happened on that trip. When we were at his house in Florida, he and I were playing Briscola, which is an Italian card game, and I will be happy to explain it to anyone who wants after service, but it is a fun game. And we were laughing and enjoying ourselves, and so much so that Aiden, who was, believe it or not, he was on his phone, was enticed to join us. And so the three of us started to play and just have such a wonderful, wonderful time. And when I think back to that moment, out of the corner of my eye, I catch a glimpse of the child I once was. And I'm looking back at myself and I'm telling myself, I'm dreaming that dream of what I could be is here.